Our story begins on Ringo Vinda as Masters Tiplee and Tiplar are accompanying Anakin Skywalker and the 501st in a critical mission to retake the Mid-Rim world from the Separatists. But before the final phase of the battle was put into action, Clone Trooper Tup, a key veteran of the 501st Legion, began experiencing blurry visions and migraines. It felt as if his own mind was drifting away from him, but he knew there was no time to speak up about it. He hit his head during battle. He figured it was a minor concussion, and he'll get it settled after the battle. Fives noticed Tup's struggle, and he told the clone that this is a textbook battle. They need to focus. Tup shook his head, and he put his helmet back on, as the final phase would begin. But as Tup and Fives got to work, side by side in this battle, Tup knew one thing for certain. Chancellor Palpatine must be executed as soon as possible. Tup was more sure of this than anything in his entire life. Palpatine was an enemy to the galaxy, to the Republic, and to peace. Tup didn't think that these thoughts were strange. To him, these thoughts were suddenly as normal as breathing oxygen. He didn't care that no one shared the sentiment. All he knew was that he would kill the Chancellor when he gets the chance. What he, and what no one else knew, was that something was activated inside of Tup's brain, an inhibitor chip designed by Count Dooku long before the war. The chip was approved and overseen by Darth Sidious himself, as it was going to be the secret weapon to ultimately wipe out the Jedi Order, and both of them knew they needed to add some extra elements to this chip, should it ever be discovered. First, Dooku and Sidious had put in the description of it that it keeps the clone's behavior from becoming erratic, and second, 150 executive orders were added, just as a means to have the clones know what to do if any of them are executed. But only one of these orders was supposed to completely alter the brain chemistry of the clones and get them to act without thought. Order 66. But Dooku had secretly ensured that one other order could have this same effects. Order 65, an order similar to Order 66, but instead of targeting the Jedi, the clones target the Chancellor. Dooku added this simply as a precaution in case Palpatine betrays him. He never truly intended to use it, but he had to be ready. After all, treachery was the way of the Sith. But now, the accidental activation of Order 65 would alter everything he had planned. Many hours later, Anakin was walking through a Republic Venator as it flew through hyperspace towards Coruscant. He and Rex had just visited Admiral Trench in his new cell, who was in custody after the Republic victory over Ringo Vinda. The planet was back under Republic control. Tiplee, Tiplar, and their personal clone unit would be overseeing the establishment of the Republic base, while Anakin and the 501st go back to Coruscant for a night of rest before their new mission assignment. The clones were celebrating with some drinks, cards, and just allowing themselves to enjoy this night away from the fighting. Morale was high right now. It wasn't often that they secured such a decisive victory and got to sleep in real beds on the same night. Anakin would walk through the ship, passing Rex, Fives, and dozens of other men who were crucial in the victory. Anakin would soon get to the barracks, hoping to be alone in order to contact Padme, when he heard someone mumbling to himself in the corner. Anakin gripped his lightsaber, cautiously turning the corner, but he just found Tup cleaning his weapon. He looked up at Anakin with erratic eyes, and Anakin would ask Tup if he's alright. Why isn't he joining the fun with his brothers? In Tup's mind, there was no fun to be had. Chancellor Palpatine was still breathing. How could he possibly try to enjoy himself? He was spending this trip home cleaning his weapon, thinking about how he will kill the Chancellor. But he also knew he must be stealthy. The Chancellor has tricked the Jedi and the clones into being on their side. He cannot reveal his true intentions. So, Tup just told Anakin that he wasn't feeling well. The lights on the ship were making his migraine worse, so he came here to rest. Anakin thought this was normal. He had no reason to think otherwise. Still, there was something in Tup's eye that was strange. But Anakin wanted to talk to Padme. Padme was waiting for Anakin via hologram, so he left and found somewhere else to be alone, telling her how excited he is to spend the night with her for a change. Padme said she was excited as well, but before they settle in for the night, she's currently at a gathering with Chancellor Palpatine and a group of senators hosting an event to support the war effort. Padme said it's not her favorite type of thing, more of an event for those who benefit from war, but a handful of Jedi Council members will be in attendance, including Kenobi, so she told Anakin he should stop by. She would also tell Anakin that she forgot a bottle of Naboo wine that she was hoping to give to the Senator of Bolasar, as she was an old friend and has just gotten married. Anakin said that would be no problem. He'll stop at the apartment and then meet her at the gathering. Another hour later, the Venator would land in the Coruscant hangar, and the clones would spread out into the barracks, heading to the mess hall to get freshened up or just straight to bed. Except for Tup and Anakin. Anakin would take off to Padme's apartment to go and find the bottle of wine. Tup would stay hidden on the Venator, and he would prepare his plans. Something in his mind was telling him that Palpatine would not die easily. A simple assassination would not do. Tup wasn't exactly sure why, but he just knew it had to be true. He must be creative. And so Tup would first stop in the weapons area, loading up a backpack with thermal detonators. Clone cleanup crews and ship weapon stockers were on their way over here, so he had to move quickly. And when he had enough, Tup would move to the hangar of the Venator. He would take an LAT gunship, flying it out of the ship, and when Tup was alerted that this takeoff was unauthorized, he alerted the command deck that he was instructed to bring this ship to the Coruscant Guard for a prison transfer. It was a lie, but by the time the commander gets the lie checked out, it will almost certainly be too late. Across Coruscant, Chancellor Palpatine was sipping on a glass of champagne, laughing, conversing with senators and Jedi from all across the galaxy. He truly couldn't wait for the day that he gets to rule his empire from the shadows, never having to deal with these life forms that are so far beneath him. But until that day comes, he will continue to play the game of politics. This gathering was in a Coruscant ballroom, around 100 stories up, in the 500 Republica building, the building where the most wealthy members of Coruscant resided. It was hosted by the Queen of Korolog, and ultimately, she was just going to ask for more funding towards her world for defense, and of course her own pockets. So be it, thought Palpatine, whatever keeps the Senate on his side. All around him, Palpatine saw many familiar faces, including many people he knew would never be on his side. Senators Amidala and Bail Organa were near the middle of the room, conversing with Jedi Mace Windu, Depa Billaba, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. The other Jedi here were Shakti and Kit Fisto, mixing in with a group of 10 other senators and roughly 20 aides, and other wealthy people who wouldn't dare miss a party. But as the music continued to play and the alcohol continued to flow, Palpatine would feel something in the Force, a small warning of danger. He looked around, and he could tell that the Jedi were sensing something as well. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but Palpatine began walking towards the large circular window as he saw an LAT gunship break away from the traffic and begin heading straight for the building. Palpatine would call for the Jedi, and Windu, Kenobi, Depa, Fisto, and Shakti stepped forward, watching as the gunship increased its speed towards the window. Inside of the gunship, Tup was locked in on the building. He would see the 5 Jedi ignite their lightsabers, and he knew they would have to be unfortunate collateral. He had to kill Chancellor Palpatine. But Tup would not fire the cannons from the ship. That would be too simple, too easy for the Jedi. Instead, he put full power into the forward thrusters, aiming the ship right for the window, and as it approached, Tup would hit the eject button. He flew out of his chair as a parachute bloomed out to catch him, and Tup watched the ship get closer and closer to the window. Inside of the ballroom, the 5 Jedi realized the cannons were not going to fire, and they shifted to stopping the ship with the Force at the last moment. They all reached out, and the Jedi would manage to halt the ship just a few meters from the window. From the bottom of the building right now, Anakin Skywalker was landing his own speeder after grabbing the wine bottle from Padme's apartment. He would see the gunship get near the window, and Anakin would sprint into the building, knowing something was happening. He got inside, began ascending the stairs as quickly as he could, and so, as Tup floated in the air back down towards the building, he pulled out the detonator, and he prepared to push the button. In the ballroom, the 5 Jedi would turn to begin evacuation. Everyone except Obi-Wan. He saw a red light flickering near the pilot's seat, and with a terrifying realization, he yelled for everyone to run, to get down, and Obi-Wan's eyes located Padme as he dove for her, tackling her to the floor, and the explosion came a moment later. The thermal detonators inside of the gunship erupted. The explosion launched forward. The huge circular window crashed inward, and the fire of the exploding ship slammed into the room. A column of white-hot energy punched forward, shredding the gunship mid-air. Plates, rotors, and troop benches vaporized in an instant. The shockwave hit the building wall like a fist. The host, Queen Hanji of Korolog, standing close to the window, never had a chance. She was lifted into the air, body consumed in the first wave of burning shrapnel, gone before she hit the ground. Senator Armin of Bolasar was thrown across a banquet table as it disintegrated beneath him. A fragment of the LAT wing would cut through him, killing him. Half a dozen aides and wealthy citizens near the blast of the front were obliterated. The Jedi take the hit after doing whatever they can to create a force bubble around them. Kit Fisto would feel shards of metal tear through his side as he collapsed to the floor. Shaak Ti tried to redirect the blast upward, arms raised, but the explosion was too wide. She was flung backward, skidding across the floor, scorched, bleeding. Depa Billaba would throw herself between the blast and a cluster of senators. The act would save them, but the force of the explosion launched Depa against a pillar with a loud crack. She would not get back up. Windu tried to move and protect the Chancellor, but a metal slab from the ship burst inward, slicing through his leg right at the knee. He fell as shards of steel cut into his arms and chest, and the fire threw him far against the wall. None of the Jedi were able to get to the Chancellor to save him from the impact. Palpatine was thrown violently off his feet. The Chancellor slammed into a table, rolling to the ground in a tangled heap. His scream was swallowed by the roar of wind and fire as the blast continued to rip outward. Obi-Wan was shielding Padme with his body, taking a huge brunt of burning debris. The heat scorched his back, slicing deep burns into him. Padme screamed into his chest as the shockwave tore over them. Around them, senators lied dead, twisted, burned, terrified. The chaos was immeasurable. The room was filled with smoke and fire. Alarms were blaring, mixing with screams of confusion, pain, fear, and action. And at the newly created entrance to the room, where a window used to be, Tup would land amid the fire, and he would discard his parachute. He walked through the fire, carrying only about one person. On the floor, Palpatine's vision was blurry, head spinning. His face was terribly burned and deformed. He was calling upon the dark side to center himself, using the pain to fuel his resolve in order to survive. He had many broken bones, but soon he would clear his vision in time to turn around and look up to see a clone trooper from Anakin's Legion. Palpatine reached up, telling the clone to help him get out of here, but the clone reached forward with his blaster, muttering a series of terrifying words. He simply told Palpatine, "Good soldiers follow orders," and Tup pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the loud room as Palpatine dropped lifeless to the floor. And a second later, Tup was tackled to the floor as Anakin Skywalker finally arrived at the ballroom. Anakin ignited his lightsaber and hovered it over Tup's neck, demanding to know why he did this. And again, Tup just said that good soldiers follow orders. He did it. He killed the Chancellor. Anakin would hit the hilt of his saber on Tup's head, knocking him out, standing up to take in the scene. And he would use his comlink to immediately contact Rex in the 501st, requesting immediate assistance. Anakin was moving through the bodies when the clones arrived, charging into the debris. Two troopers lifted Bail Organa, barely conscious, onto a transport outside of the broken window. Many others were working to put out the fire and clear the smoke. Another pair was dragging the motionless Shaak Ti and Kit Fisto. Anakin would find Padme, but Anakin's heart sank as he saw who she was kneeling over. Obi-Wan was lying, eyes open, but he was already gone. Padme was crying as she told Anakin that he saved her life, and Anakin was filled with a deep dread that he quickly replaced with a numb rage. He fell to his knees, not wanting to believe that this could possibly be real. Rex would organize a full evacuation, and eventually, the medical wing below became a flood of bodies. Anakin stayed until the end, and eventually, he would carry Obi-Wan to the temple. He, along with Fisto and Depa Billaba, were the Jedi killed in the explosion. Windu and Shaak Ti were severely injured, but clinging to life. Palpatine was dead. Many senators were dead. The following hours would be a blur, but the harsh reality of the truth would soon come to light in the Senate and to the Jedi. A clone trooper has gone rogue, assassinating Chancellor Palpatine and a handful of Jedi and citizens in a royal gathering. In the Senate, there were shouts of anger and confusion as Mas Amedda took center stage, and Mas was in over his head. But he also saw an opportunity here. Perhaps he could rally the galaxy behind himself. And Mas would say, they cannot let this attack slow down the Republic effort in this war. Early suspicions are that this clone trooper was corrupted by the Separatists. They cannot lose morale. They must continue to fight these monsters on the Separatist side with everything they have. The Senate began calling for a public trial for the clone who killed Palpatine, demanding to know everything, wanting an investigation into every clone, wanting to know if this will continue with other senators. But Ma said that Tup was killed by General Skywalker after the assassination. The only way to ever learn the truth about who Tup was working for is by capturing Dooku. The Senate roared in approval of this message, and Moss truly thought that Tup was dead. But instead, he was secretly brought before the Jedi Council. Anakin and Rex decided this was the best course of action. They didn't exactly trust the Senate to handle an investigation, so Tup was brought here. And when Tup woke up in the council, he was seemingly a completely different person. When Anakin slammed his saber into his head, it disabled the malfunctioning chip, essentially just putting him back to being his normal self. And Tup had vague memories of what happened in the ballroom, but he couldn't believe that he would do it. As the Jedi questioned him, Tup said it wasn't him. He would never do that. He's loyal to the Republic, the Chancellor, the Jedi. Tup felt like he was going insane. In the corner of the room, Anakin was fighting his own personal anger. This man killed Obi-Wan, Palpatine, so many others. How could he not remember it? And eventually, Yoda said there's only one true way to find the truth, and the surviving council members would gather around Tup, putting their hands on him, diving deep into the Force. Anakin would join in on this, trying to let go of his dark emotions, and help search for the truth. And so, for many hours, the Jedi would be in deep meditation. Tup was put to sleep from immense light pouring into him, searching his mind, and after so many hours, the Jedi would find the chip in his mind. And together, they would discover that this chip is what made Tup turn against Palpatine. An immediate investigation would be launched into Kamino, but at the same time, Dooku and Grievous would see this as an opportunity to push all of their chips into the middle. Dooku was deeply frustrated, because although the death of Palpatine made sure he was the lone Sith Lord remaining, it came at a terrible time. He and Sidious were in the final stages of their plan to end this war. The time was coming to culminate with a great attack on Coruscant, because the Separatist army was largely depleted by now. They were truly pushed back into the Outer Rim. But still, the Separatist army would increase their offensive strategy, all while the Jedi would begin to unravel the truth about the Separatists on Kamino. The Jedi would not hold back on their investigation after a clone trooper killed Jedi and Senate members. They would do what they had to do in order to get to the deepest archives of Kamino, find the true creator of the clone armies was Dooku himself. And so, as Dooku was calling to the Separatist worlds for more funding and more support, a huge crack in the foundation of the Separatists would come along when the Jedi presented this evidence to the Separatist Senate through negotiations with Senator Amidala. As Dooku was pushing into the Mid-Rim, General Grievous would learn that his leader created the Republic Army, and he would try and kill Dooku in order to take over for himself. He has grown so tired of the Sith. And soon Dooku stood on the bridge of the Invisible Hand when General Grievous entered, along with 8 Magna Guards fanning out behind him and a full squad of droidekas unfolding. Grievous would move in with the guards and the droids, and Dooku would meet him, but the odds were nearly impossible. A droideka blast would soon clip his leg. A Magna Guard staff would crack across his ribs. Dooku would parry 3 strikes from Grievous at once, redirect a 4th, but another staff hooked his wrist and forced his blade away, and Grievous stabbed all 4 arms forward, killing the Count, and Dooku died, regretting so much of what he has done. The Clone Wars would go on for another few months, but soon the reality became obvious. Grievous and the droids were far outnumbered and outmatched, and the end would come on Felucia, as Anakin Skywalker would strike down the droid general with 2 blades, his own and Obi-Wan's. Anakin, with help from Ahsoka and Padme, had used Obi-Wan's death to fuel him in the light. Padme saw what Anakin did when his mother died. She knew it could not happen again. She and Anakin would have Obi-Wan buried next to Shmi, and Anakin would truly grieve for his master, pledging to live his life in a way that would make him proud. And so he did, ending the war with this divisive strike. The clone troopers would have their chips removed, and as the war ended, both the clones and Jedi would begin separating from a republic that was trying to move back towards peace. Padme and Anakin were still together, but they became a bit more distant by choice, after seeing truly how broken the Republic and Jedi were. Both of them vowed to try and rebuild both entities. As Anakin knew, it was what Obi-Wan would want. In time, they would live a life with true family, but that day would come when they were sure that the galaxy was reformed and safe to raise a child in. As for Tup, his survival was never revealed to the Senate, and Rex would help him become a new person, going on to live on Seleucami, as Cut would help him to settle into a new life as a farmer, where he would live out his days. And folks, that is our story for today. Yeah, enjoyed this one, of course. Hope you did as well. Obviously, this Clone Wars arc is the center of probably close to 8, 10 what-ifs that I've done by now. It's just, with Fives, Fox, Anakin, Inhibitor Chips, Order 66, Tup, Order 65. Order 65, actually, just first one I've involved in this stuff, so I enjoyed it. There was another path, distant one. I don't know. I always like to tell you guys some other things I could have done, but, where Mas Amedda blames the Jedi for this, and, the clones and Jedi are both sent out of the Republic, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. Separatists would just kill everyone, so bad move by Mas Amedda. So I altered to just have him, I don't know, try to take over for himself, but ultimately, Jedi find out the truth. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought of this one. Let me know what you guys want to see next down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you like Star Wars. Yeah, now you have to. Tricked you. Anyways, appreciate you guys. And yeah, I will see you in the next video.